Today marks the 5,000th day since the release of A Dance with Dragons, the fifth, and if you're living in reality, final installment in the A Song of Ice and Fire book series that Game of Thrones is based off of. And some of you might be holding out a little bit of hope. Maybe someday we'll finally get Winds of Winter, the sixth book. There's obviously no way we'll get the seventh book, Dream of Spring, but hey, maybe someday we'll finally get Winds. We'll see what happens with Stannis in the Battle of the Ice. We'll see what happens with Jon Snow and Daenerys and all these characters that we left off on cliffhangers with. Someday, maybe, perchance, mayhaps, we'll get the next book. I'm here to tell you the answer to that is a big fat no. We're never going to get the next book, not in a million years, and I'll explain why. There's just no way we're going to get it. Abandon all hope, ye who enter into this video. It's not ever going to come out, guys. It's never going to come out. Now, let's pump the brakes a little bit. I want you to think for a moment, how long is 5,000 days? It's been 5,000 days since the last book. Outside of like sample chapters, we've gotten no update to this series at all since then. 5,000 days, that's about 13 years and 8 months, still nothing, which is a pretty insane amount of time. The entire Game of Thrones series aired and finished, and in that time frame, we still haven't gotten Winds, even after it ended. It's not even like it ended recently, it ended years ago. The last episode of Season 8 of the show came out like almost 6 years ago now, and we haven't gotten anything since the very beginning of the series, like a month after like the first episode aired. We still have nothing. That's a pretty insane amount of time. That's quite unbelievable. Children have been born in this time frame and are now like freshmen in high school. That's pretty crazy. They're like gearing up to drive soon, probably in like the next year. Marriages have began and ended in this time. People have died waiting on the next book, and we still don't have it after so long. Roy Dotrice is now dead. He was the beloved audiobook reader for the entire series. He died years ago, actually. He'll never get to finish the next book. He'll never get to read it, find out all the mysteries and whatnot, and we'll never get to hear it narrated in his voice. Even if it came out, we'll never hear it in his voice outside of the use of AI or something, which is a great shame. Roy Dotrice and thousands of other fans are never going to know the answers to mysteries like who wrote the pink letter, what happened to Mance Rayder and his spear wives, what does Euron Greyjoy plan to do with Dragonbinder and his whole ritual Cthulhu thing at sea. They'll never know who won the Battle of Ice between Stannis Baratheon and the Bolton Frey alliance. Probably Stannis, but we don't really know that for sure. They don't even know what happened to Uncle Benjen. This is like a 30-year mystery almost. We still don't know what happened to Uncle Benjen Stark. In the show, he was turned into Cold Hands, but George R.R. Martin told his editors, and we know for a fact that that is not the case in the books, so we still don't even know what happened to Uncle Benjen, actually. That's pretty unbelievable, you know. A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, the fourth and fifth books in this series, the two final books, they were originally one big book until they were separated. They were cleaved in half by George because they got too big. A Feast for Crows feast takes place mainly in the Seven Kingdoms and the characters in that area, and then Dance with Dragons takes place during the same time with characters in Essos and mainly north of the Wall as well. So it's pretty unbelievable, you know. It's been like 13, almost 14 years since we had an update to the stories of characters like Jon Snow, Daenerys Targaryen, Tyrion Lannister, etc. But it's actually been even longer. It's easy to forget this. It's been even longer since we had an update to the stories of characters like Samwell Tarly, Brienne of Tarth, which sounds kind of similar, Aerion Martell, who is like a major character in the books, and even Sansa Stark. You know, the only updates we've had to some of these characters is like maybe a sample chapter or two, if we're lucky, if that, which is kind of unbelievable. You know, it's been such a long time. We've had 3 Bran chapters since the Clinton administration. 3 chapters from Bran's point of view, Bran Stark, who is supposed to be the one with the most interesting story. They even say that in the show. Who has a more interesting story than Bran the Broken? Well, it turns out everybody else, because we've gotten 3 chapters of his since the Clinton administration when people were worried about the Y2K bug. That's how long it's been since we had that. Daenerys has been squatting in the grass. Jon Snow has been bleeding out into his namesake for almost 14 years now, and it's easy to forget that this isn't even actually the last book in the series. Winds of Winter is supposed to be the 6th book, but then there's actually supposed to be a 7th book, A Dream of Spring, which is also never going to come out, obviously. The only reason it's called that is because you'd have to live in a dream world to believe that a single page of this book is ever going to be written by George in a million years. It will never, ever happen in a million years. But let's get back to what we really care about, the Winds of Winter. Let's see some updates from George over the years. Don't worry guys, George has only 400 or 500 more pages to write. He's 2/3 of the way done now with the Winds of Winter. It's only gonna take a few more years at this pace. Don't panic everybody, there's still time. George is 3/4 of the way done with the Winds of Winter. Do not lose hope. He's written hundreds and hundreds of pages this year. He's on a roll. If the book isn't out by July 2020 and in his hand when he goes to the convention in New Zealand, you can chain him up in a cabin until he finishes writing The Winds of Winter. Only one more year, everybody. The book will be out next year. Be patient. George is still months away from finishing The Winds of Winter, but he's not sure if he'll release it before or after Fire and Blood. We will see. He thinks it'll be out later this year, 2017. He isn't going to write anything else until The Winds of Winter is out. By the way, have you picked up the newest Wild Cards book? He hopes to release it by 2016, probably before Barack Obama leaves office. It's probably only going to take George 3 years to finish the book, so we should get it as soon as 2014. You know, The Winds of Winter isn't the only reason I'm looking forward to the year 2014. I'm also really looking forward to getting myself a brand new iPhone 6. I can't wait to get that. It's going to be so ballin'. Season 5 of The Walking Dead is going to come out. I'm super excited for that. What happened to Beth? We're going to find that out. You know, what we're going to get Dark Souls 2. I can't wait for Dark Souls 2. Captain America the Winter Soldier is going to come out. Guardians of the Galaxy is going to come out. 2014 is going to be a really packed year, guys. I can't wait. It's safe to say that this book is a little bit late, and it's probably never going to come out at this rate, to be honest. In fact, I think it never will. A lot of people say stuff like, you know, George owes us nothing. We're not entitled to these books, basically. He can write it or not. It's his decision and whatnot. He doesn't owe us anything. And to be honest, I kind of reject this idea. I think he does kind of owe us this book. You know, he's seen so much success from his fans. His life has improved so much as a result of all these people buying his book and supporting him under the promise that someday we'll get a resolution to his story. And he's strung us along for over a decade saying, yeah, guys, the book is going to come out next year, stringing us along for a decade, promising after promising after promising. We still don't have the book. I think we are owed this book. And the thing is, you know, it would be different if he said from the start, hey, guys, I'm sick of this series. I don't want to write it anymore. Like, let me pass the torch to someone else. Let me pass the football to some other writers, mayhaps, and they'll write it for us. You know, I can be the editor, I can be the overseer, and I can guide them toward, you know, what I would want and whatnot. And everyone would be happy with that, and everyone would still be happy with that now, even if he did that now. And he chooses actively not to do this. And I don't understand why, because there's no way he's going to finish the book. And the thing is, this book series is so good. It deserves an ending. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, is because it's such a good book series. It's so well written. It needs an ending. It deserves an ending, you know. I really like the series a lot. You know, I don't really read too much. I'm an illiterate person. In fact, I actually can't read. But the book series is so good. It's so well written. The language choice, the sentence structure is so good. The words just flow like silk. It's such an easy book to read, all of them. And it's so fun. All the plot lines are so intricate. They're so detailed. It's this complex web of all these different details bouncing off each other so well, so perfectly. It's so, so good. It feels like such a lived-in world. And this series is George R.R. Martin's legacy, and the thing is, he really deserves a better legacy than the one he's giving to himself. Because of him, if he continues on this path, his legacy is going to be that of a lazy guy that promised everything and lied to us and delivered nothing. And it's sad to see him just actively choosing not to do this and choosing not to have these books finished by somebody else. It needs to happen, and it needs to happen fast. In the meantime, I'll be washing down my lemon cakes with some milk of the poppy out of my Estes flask here after I break my fast on some bacon burned black. Mine uncle even promised me I'd get an Arbor Gold or mayhaps even a Dornish Red for my 5th and 20 name day. But words are wind, a mummer's fart, and George R.R. Martin's updates on the writing process of Winds of Winter are as useless as nipples on a breastplate. A Martin never pays his debts. Winter is not coming. This is Gatorade.